Good morning. This is Pastor Jeff. It is Friday, March 10th, 2023. We're here for our 3 daily lectionary readings. Once again, Psalm 95 is going to be our psalm reading. For our Old Testament reading, we're going to be continuing in the book of Exodus, Exodus 16, 9 through 21, so continuing the story from yesterday. And then Ephesians 2, 11 through 22 is going to be our New Testament reading. And today we're going to be reading it out of the Message. And with it being Friday, once again, we're going to be looking ahead to what is happening on Sunday. Come, let's shout praises to God. Raise the roof for the rock who saved us. Let's march in to his presence singing praises, lifting the rafters with our hymns. And why? Because God is the best, high king over all the gods. In one hand, he holds deep caves and caverns. In the other hand, grasps the high mountains. He made oceans. He owns it. His hands sculpted earth. So come, now let us worship. Bow before him, on your knees before God, who made us. Oh yes, he's our God. And we're the people and pastures, the flock that he feeds. Drop everything and listen. Listen as he speaks. Don't turn a deaf ear on his bitter uprising. As on the day of the wilderness test, when your ancestors turned and put me to the test. For 40 years, they watched me at work among them. And as over and over they tried my patience. And I was provoked. Oh, I was provoked. Can't they keep their minds on God for 5 minutes? Do they simply refuse to walk down the road? Exasperated, I exploded. They'll never get where they're headed, never be able to sit down and rest. Our Old Testament reading today comes from Exodus 16, 9 through 22. And once again, we're continuing the story that we had heard yesterday. Moses instructed Aaron, tell the whole company of Israel, come near to God. He's heard your complaints. When Aaron gave out the instructions to the whole company of Israel, they turned to face the wilderness. And there it was, the glory of God visible in the cloud. God spoke to Moses, I've listened to all the complaints of Israelites. Now tell them, at dusk you will eat meat, and at dawn you will eat your fill of bread. And you'll realize that I am God, your God. That evening, quail flew in and covered the camp. And in the morning, there was a layer of dew all over camp. When the layer of the dew had lifted, there on the wilderness ground was a fine, flaky something, fine as frost on the ground. The Israelites took one look and said to one another, Mehu, what is it? They had no idea what it was. So Moses told them, it's the bread God has given you to eat. And these are God's instructions. Gather enough for each person, about 2 quarts per person. Gather enough for everyone in your tent. The people of Israel went to work and started gathering, some more, some less, but when they measured out what they had gathered, those who had gathered more had no extra, and those who gathered less weren't short. Each person had gathered as much as they needed. And Moses said to them, don't leave any of it until morning. But they didn't listen to Moses. A few of the men kept back some of it until morning. It got wormy and smelled bad. And Moses lost his temper with them. They gathered it every morning, each person according to their need. Then the sun heated up and it melted. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread, about 4 quarts per person. Then the leaders of the company came to Moses and reported. Our New Testament reading today comes from the book of Ephesians, chapter 2, verses 11 through 22. But don't take any of this for granted. It was only yesterday that you outsiders to God's way had no idea of any of this. Didn't know the first thing about the way God works. Hadn't the faintest idea of Christ. you knew nothing of the rich history of God's covenant and promises in Israel. Hadn't a clue about what God was doing in the world at large. Now, because of Christ dying that death, shedding that blood, you were once out of it, all together, all in on everything. The Messiah had made things up between us so that we're now together on this, both non-Jew outsiders and Jewish insiders. He tore down the wall we used to help each other at a distance. He repealed the law code that had come so clogged with fine print and footnotes that it hindered more than it helped. Then he started over. Instead of continuing with two groups of people, separated by centuries of animosity and suspicion, he created a new kind of human being, a fresh start for everyone. Christ brought us together through his death on the cross. The cross got us to embrace, and that was the end of hostility. Christ came and preached peace to you, outsiders, and peace to us insiders. He treated us as equals and so made us equals. Through him, we both share the same Spirit and have equal access to the Father. That's plain enough, isn't it? You're no longer wandering exiles. The kingdom of faith is now your home country. You're no longer strangers or outsiders. You belong here, as much right to the name Christian as anyone. God is building a home. He's using us all, irrespective of how we got here and what he is building. He used the apostles and the prophets for the foundation. Now he's using you, fitting you in brick by brick, stone by stone, with Christ Jesus as the cornerstone that holds all its parts together. We see it taking shape day after day, a holy temple built by God, all of us built into it, a temple in which God is quite at home. And here ends our readings.